A couple of weeks ago, we told you we were going to remind you of your Life app so we could talk about the power of touch after that sermon and see how you're doing now. So to remind you, the Life application said to think about how Jesus had healed us and then to tell someone how Jesus had healed you. And we said you'd get bonus points if you give us a video testimony so we can share it. We can set an example for others by touching their lives in a way that brings healing. And during COVID-19, not touching, even though we want to, so they can stay well, is another way of touching their lives. So we asked you that week to touch someone's life. You've had a couple of weeks to do that, but the specific instructions were to touch someone's life this week with God's healing touch, not your own. In a couple of weeks, we said you'd have a devotional to remind you, so this is it. So now we've all gone back into town. But how are we progressing on this work? So are we honoring the weaker brother, the sister? One of the things we've said in worship is we're all wearing masks. We're not separating people. We don't have passports or tickets and vaxxers and non-vaxxers. Everybody is going to take care of all people so that not one person in the community is going to feel unsafe walking in or feel like they have to pick a side. We're going back into town and it's going to change how we heal each other. Romans says this in chapter 14, accept the person whose faith is weak. Don't argue with them about where your differences are and where you have differences of opinion. One person's faith allows for them to eat anything, but another person eats only vegetables because their faith is weak. The person who eats everything must not look down on the one who does not, and the one who doesn't eat everything must not judge the person who does. That's because God has accepted them both. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? Whether they are faithful or not is a matter for their master's concern, and they will be faithful because the Lord has the power to make them faithful. So how have you been touching people without touching them? Because it's so easy for us to want to touch with our own hands and say, see there, I'm showing the love of God. And sometimes when we don't touch, just by our lives, we show people the touch of God. This laying on of hands that you see beside me is a picture of that physical touch. But when those people lay hands on someone, I've been honored many times to have people lay hands on me and pray. And what I feel is not just their hands. I feel the power of their prayers behind those hands. So how do we help everyone remain faithful? Maskers, non-maskers, vaxxers, non-vaxxers. Romans 14 says, don't cause another person to stumble. And we're going to stumble a little bit, trying not to help others stumble, aren't we? So how are you going to show God's healing touch with us this week without touching and without judging and without claiming our own rights? Because that's what the laying of hands is. It's about feeling the power of God through us. It's what Pentecost was about. It's what feeling God's touch is about. What happens when we go back into town is people see how we live our faith.